Welcome everyone. This month we're going to be covering Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wishwell. I would categorize this book as light fantasy, and what I mean by light fantasy, it's not too graphic. It's very warm, cozy at times. And for this book, we basically follow a monster. Her name is Secession. I may say it differently multiple times, who lives in a cave by this town. She kind of keeps to herself. You first find her initially in the story. She was being disturbed from a hibernation, and she comes out. She sees these strange monster hunters in her cave, and she's kind of like, WTF, like, why are you here? Why are you disturbing my sleep? And basically she finds that they come to kill her. So she's like the main story, and as we go along, there's like a love story kind of built in, some drama, insight to like what could Secession possibly be, what is her history and background, and then there's friends that you make along the way. So before I say any more, let's get Mike's perspective. So what was your general feels of the book?
It kind of reminded me of that animated movie Nimona. This is the first book that we've read where the LGBTQ themes are at the forefront. And I want to separate it from, what was the book? The
We read a
comic
Heartstoppers,
where the kids happen to be gay in that story, but it wasn't their, yeah, exactly. It wasn't part of their character, essentially. And what I mean by that is that there isn't that much attention brought to it other than this person's different. This person may be different, but to me, it's not really a theme of the story. And in this book, in the writing, the characters are very conscious of who am I, what am I. I don't fit stereotypical norms.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as it goes to identity,
yeah,
not in general. But I learned what NB means, mm-hmm. and I had seen the letters NB for non-binary, mm-hmm. but NB is kind of a more casual, I guess, way to identify somebody. So mm-hmm. that was interesting, and I could tell that there was a lot of effort put into the messaging being about acceptance and pronouns and things that people from that community may feel. It kind of felt like the story was a vessel to convey that kind of message. And the author, because the way that the book is structured, it's the story, and then after you finish the story, there's about the author, there's the author's note, there's acknowledgments, there's even bonus chapters, which I read. Did you read?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the author kind of says, I'm neurodivergent. This character is this was a character that I kind of wrote to kind of reflect myself, mm-hmm. more so than would normally be the case for an author. And he kind of talks about how I wasn't sure if I could do this or if I should do this, but he lists some other authors and their books that kind of inspired him to kind of go in that direction. So I thought that was pretty clear. So some of the terminology, characters being identified in certain ways, mm-hmm. or having certain thoughts, I'm not going to lie. Maybe it's because I'm getting old, but it was the first time that I saw a character described as NB. And obviously it makes a lot of sense, and I could imagine that. Mm-hmm. But it was just so different from what I'm used to that it actually paused my reading. And I was saying, I had to think, like, what is an NB? And then I saw it. And of course, because of media and the way we consume things in our culture right now, my immediate thought was, is this cool, or is this something that should be criticized? And obviously I had to pull back and say, no, it's different from what we're used to. But yeah, I thought that was a nice touch.
So do you think the author's note in the end helped frame everything for you, then make you less critical, more critical?
No, it didn't change anything. I think I'm at the point in my life that this kind of story is not interesting to me anymore. I understand the message. I don't need the message. While it's nice to be reminded of it, it doesn't have to be the whole story. It can be a minor aspect for me. And when I say that, I also mean like the basic idea of like revenge in the epic sense, or like understanding that what it's like to be considered the monster when you're actually a kind soul who is
Just living life.
nurtured into being somebody that people are disgusted by when it's not really your fault, or wanting acceptance, like those kind of things. Though they're in these kind of stories, I think they're very broadly expressed and expressed in a stylized way that I've seen it enough, I've consumed it enough, I don't get much out of it anymore. I think it is a cool experience for somebody that these kind of ideas are new to, or that needs to identify in that way with a character or a story that helps them to understand their situation a little better, or to be able to identify who in their life is someone who's actually a person that's worth being around versus somebody who one might want to get away from. So I think in that case, it's really good. And I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this. I'll say that, yes, I think that there are adults out there that this message could help, and that the story is fun and unique in certain silly ways. What about you? What did you think?
No, I mean, I liked it. It's entertaining. It's light. It was a quick, easy read. It's like no more than 300 pages. And I feel like I took my time reading it because I wanted to fully, I don't know, like enjoy it. Because it is a quest. She's a monster. She gets hunted by the villagers and by this particular family, the Wayfarers, or what, the Wolffarers.
Wolfires.
Yeah, because apparently there's this curse. So as she's getting hibernation, she's hunted, she's hungry. So then she goes to the village to try to eat someone, essentially. And then that falls through. And then she meets her the other main character, which is Homily, who comes to find out is her love interest, which I think is sweet and nice because you learn through the interactions. Because at first, Secession didn't know. Secession was just using her in the very beginning of the story. It was like, well, I'm going to eat you. I'm just keeping you close until I heal. And they do form a bond. And I don't know. I think it's like cute because the whole premise of the book, I mean, it is in the title, someone you can build a nest in, because Secession, her monster type, I think they called her Wayfires or Wayfrees.
What?
The name of the monsters that they kept calling them is...
No, so in the beginning, so the general term for monsters that are kind of her, like her, by the humans, from the humans, is worm.
Worm?
But with a Y. But she doesn't, Secession doesn't like believe that it's an accurate way to describe what she is. And also another reason is because Secession kind of, it seems like she associates worm with a negative connotation. And most of the book is her kind of reflecting a lot about how if a human acts like a jerk or does something hypocritical, like murders somebody, she'll be like, oh, they don't mind murdering to eat for themselves, but when I murder to eat, it's like I'm this terrible monster beast that needs to be removed. And it's a little oversimplification, not by that much, but that kind of happens a lot where she's reflecting and she's like, I'm not that different. In her mind, she's like, I'm not that different from a human. So why am I being tortured?
Yeah. Well, there's that, and also there's the thing about love and acceptance, right? Because I was trying to get before someone you can build an essence, because part of the worm experience, the worm is that once you find someone you love, essentially you kill them, you lay your eggs in them, and then the offspring kind of grows inside the dead body, essentially. But as she's going through this experience, Secessions is like debate, like, is this love? Does this person love me? Will she love me because of who I am? And there's also that other because that's with Homily, who's a human or a witch, and trying to figure out, like, what are these feelings? And then coming to think, like, well, because she's also doing her own reflection, because she doesn't know, she didn't have her parents. Her dad obviously was dead because her dad was the nest. And then her mom in this book, quote unquote, died when she was very young. So she has no idea who she is, how she's supposed to act, what are the proper ways for her to be as her species. So she's learning, reflecting, and trying to get cues from Homily and other people, trying to understand who she is, and then what are these feelings that she's feeling inside of herself.
I didn't really think about that, but that's kind of cool what the author did, because I mean it was kind of I'm not saying it was executed as well as it probably could have been, but what you said made a lot of sense, and I didn't really pick up on that. Where in the overall, Shisheshin is like this amorphous thing that like can take on other shapes
or beings, because she can be practically anything.
Right, she could be anything. So I guess that's she's kind of figuring it out. But it was never anything besides an obsession with humans. Like she liked Blueberry, which
Blueberry.
is she liked thinking about it, she liked Blueberry, who was a bear, like a oversized bear that reminded me of like a silly, cuddly, but also imposing like bear from maybe like Fantasia, where
I
you
was
see
giving Princess Mononoke Studio Ghibli.
okay, or that, and maybe it was the Jungle Book or something else where the bears would kind of like purse their lips and kind of like, or they would kind of like do this kind of thing, and like when they were in love or something like that. But it kind of reminded me of that. And in the beginning of the book, before she meets Homily, it's kind of Blueberry, but she's never like, oh, I could shapeshift into a bear and may have a relationship with this bear, and that could happen. But there's just this obsession with humans and murdering them and
she eats other animals.
wanting to love them, and her it turns out that the Baron Wolfire, who her own mother, who was another worm thing like her, like Shishishin, chose the Baron, who we find out was probably a decent person. And we also don't know if the Baroness was truly awful, because the kids who are still alive, the Wolfire kids, one of them dies early on. He was kind of this vain guy. And then they're the three sisters, the three daughters. And they were really little when you find out the twist in the book and find out that the Baroness was killed when Shisheshin was around, when Shisheshin was born. And we don't know, I guess, truly if the Baroness was mean before the mother shapeshifted into her, took over her body, and enacted this huge revenge plot. And I guess for the mom, it was part revenge, but also part like just being a narcissist and wanting like, and being like, it's everything for itself. I need to make sure my line lives on.
Yeah.
And through me, because I'm the most alpha top of them, so, apex predator of all the apex predators.
Yeah. So we do have, like I said, we have two stories. We have Secession, who's trying to move through the human world and survive, right? And that's like a quick summary. And then we have Homily, who, as Mike mentioned, was part of this wealthy family in the area, who we find slowly throughout the story. We get pieces of information of like what's happening, what happened to Homily, what happened to the Wolfires. As we know, there was the first brother, Christopher. He dies immediately. And then there was Oded, Epigene. How do you say Epigene?
No.
What's her name? What's the EP? There's Oded.
No, it was Ode.
Oh, I called it Oded.
It was Ode.
Oded.
No, the naming scheme kind of annoyed me, but it's all right. So one of them was Ode. Ode. That was the youngest. Not Ode, it's Ode.
I call it Ode.
The other one, the blonde one, the middle one is Epigram.
Epigram. I called her Epigene.
Homily is the oldest, and that's or the second oldest or something. Yeah. But she's like the love interest, the romance interest, and she's also the one that Shisheshin wants to be the person that she builds her nest in, that it would eventually kill. But there's also another part of the plot in the story where she has to find the perfect time to tell her so that she doesn't turn on her and try to turn on Shisheshin and try to kill her. And then the oldest brother, or the middle brother, I don't know, he's something like that. His name is Catharsis.
I thought it was Christopher. I can't remember.
No, it wasn't Christopher. It was
he died very, very, very.
They all had funny names, and that's why. Oh no, Epigram is the name that they give
the warrior sister who is copying the brother.
No, the warrior sister had a different name. Okay. Epigram was. Oh no, you're right. Epigram was the sister. Epilogue is what they name the sack that holds
the
babies of Secession, because at the end they decide that instead of using homily as
The nest.
the nest, there's kind of this moment where they're like, it doesn't have to be this way. We could be a family. You don't have to die. I'm not going to be that selfish.
Well, yeah, because
and so they kind of raise it as like its own amorphous blob that kind of grows. And at the end of the story, it's more like it happens to take the shape of like a dog mostly.
well, that's what I think. I feel that with Homily, we learn her story where she was mentally and physically abused in this family. Like, she was almost killed by Epigram. She was basically abused by her quote unquote mother and her siblings. So she had a very, very traumatic upbringing, which caused her to leave home. But then when she heard that her brother died and her mother called her, like, you have to help us with this fight, she comes home and then eventually meets Secession. But as at one point in the story, Secession does come to Homily's place of home and meets the family, and even very quickly Secession is clocking like how like these people are like, how can you be cruel to Homily? She's so sweet, she's nurturing, she's caring, and Secession wants to protect her. And I felt like the author did do a good job of giving us an idea through Homily, depicting her trauma of like her slowly closing down, not being able to confront her mother and her sister. And she felt like, since she was one of the oldest children, to protect her siblings even though they treated her like shit. So it's like she had this weird relationship with her family where Secession was like, hey, they're not worth it. You can just walk away at any time. Like, why are you taking this abuse from them?
Yeah, this story, now that you mentioned that too, this story definitely is different in that way, where it's usually a lot of characters find the strength within themselves based on what's happening. But in this story, there's a lot of being pushed.
Yeah.
And a lot of times Secession will push Homily, and Homily will push Secession, and it'll be like there's this idea that like their relationship is kind of kismet. This isn't really established by the author explicitly, but it kind of came off in that there are a lot of situations where like they're both very aware emotionally. So there's kind of an emphasis on just a person that you love and care about being close by during intense situations can empower someone to do the right thing or to be brave. And I think in normal stories, it happens, but it's at a very specific time in the story. But here it was like all the time this needed to happen, which is kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, no, I think it's like one, like they use each other to learn from each other and pull on like each other's strength. Like there'll be moments where Secession will always defer to Homily because, again, she's trying to be human, so she's like deferring to her, like, do we kill or not kill? So she learned, and she trying to adapt to Homily's behaviors of being loving and caring. This is what Secession falls in love with because she didn't have that, and that's what she finds comforting in Homily. And another thing that I also found cute is that throughout the whole story, like, they would do certain things of like holding each other, comforting each other. And there was one incident when they were in the inn, and something where they were sitting in the bed, and Secession's like, well, what do we do? Like, let's go, like, after having dinner with the family. And they're all dressed up from like having this party. And like one thing that we do learn, because they have their first kiss. And Secession's like, well, I didn't really like that, but I like Homily. And then through that experience, we learned through Homily and Secession that they're asexual and they just like each other's company, which was like another cute thing. Like we don't need to have a sexual relationship. And the author, and there's no, I guess you could say, spice in the book, which I found typically fine because I felt like all their actions were endearing and loving, and their support through each other shows like a different kind of love that didn't have to have a physical need or touch, like where some books go crazy over.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why in my mind, this is more like it's cute and it's silly. There is a very, like a horror-y element to it. Like there is a lot of gore. There is a lot of like...
depiction of abuse.
Yeah, there's a lot of abuse. But I kind of imagined the story as like sometimes going in and out of 2D and 3D animation, but mostly as an animation, not as like a live action kind of thing. And it's funny. I also didn't really like at the end with the bonus chapters.
I loved it. I thought it was cute and silly.
I thought they were dumb, and then no, not dumb, but like I thought they were especially the one where they become like Scooby-Doo adventure pals, and it's like oh, they get a letter saying throughout the story, the main story, there's this idea that like the Wolfire family, specifically Homily, has been kind of like creating this encyclopedia of the world, and that includes maps, that includes like getting information about different types of monsters, but the author doesn't really go into the different types of monsters that are in this world. It's just this weird amorphous blob that can turn into all these horrifying like things potentially, or like shapeshift. It doesn't, and then all of a sudden at the end in the bonus chapter, it's like, oh, we're being told there's vampires, but then they go and there isn't a vampire, and the little kid was just sick because he had an allergy, and they're like, yeah, he's just sick. Give him change his diet and he'll be fine, and then he's okay. And the very last line is Shisheshin being like, not everything's a monster, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason why it's an epilogue, because it's like just a short, maybe something the author wanted to add, but didn't make sense with the rest of the main story. But like the whole point, like there is slight world building, so we can feel attached to the town, the family, the lands,
the factions.
And we never get outside of that because it's all person interactions. The author did a good job of describing the tension among the town, the family, the relationships within that family. So I felt like it was more relationship driven than like building this atmosphere, some people would say, of. It was very relationship focused.
I agree that it was relationship focused, but I think there was also a lot of silly, nonsensical, like epicness for no reason. I mean, there's a lot of running away, a lot of back and forth between Underlook and the Lair. There are points where it's just where she just she goes from being Shisheshin goes from being really weak in a weakened state to, oh, she screwed up and she's in town and she's got to go, and it's just like, and she ran.
But the thing is that what I was trying to say is that he didn't put big focus into this epic world, as it were. It's like he kept it very, very focused in this general area of this world map, because he wanted to focus on the story of the people within this town, the monsters, interaction, and the family. That was my takeaway. But what I did feel after a while, by being with Secession and Homily, you start feeling... Like, I even felt like at one moment I felt for the blobs. Like, don't kill the blob. The blob, like, he was looking for his mom, who was Secession, because Secession didn't know that she created this monster or her child. So, like, I felt like he did a very good job of using that human... making you feel through the interactions with the slave environment. Like, even Blueberry, like, I wanted to punch people in the face when they had to tie up Blueberry and use them as bait. I was like, who's touching Blueberry and who do we have to go after? Because Secession is focused on interactions. She doesn't know how people act. She doesn't even know how her type should act. So she was very hyper-focused on interacting with humans, and I felt like that's where the author relied heavily on, is through those relationships and observance.
So do you think the story could have been more interesting, or would have been more interesting if instead of Underlook just kind of being under siege by the Baroness, if it actually was being attacked by like one of the rival factions or something like that?
I think it would add too much to the book already. I feel like using Secession essentially as the bait to be the primary villain, in the end, like as Mike said, there was like a swap of that villain, because I felt like the twist was like, I kind of figured out the twist. I had like an assumption like, oh, the Baroness could be Secession's mom, because the whole point of Secession's mom becoming the Baroness is because, one, she wanted power, and two, she wanted, since we don't give an idea of how Secession's people can die. We kind of get this general idea that they're in sense immortal to some degree, like they can die.
Well, they can die from being drowned in rosemary, essentially.
Yeah, but they can
oil.
But to make it seem like they're aging, she was kind of staying with this family because she was going to use them essentially and their whole family as like carcasses. They were going to be the bodies that she was going to live in. She was going to kill them off slowly, and she was going to live this long life and conquer the world. Because the family itself were wreaking havoc on this town to begin with.
Well, Secession at the end, it was really short, but they kind of say that her mom, that she basically started wars so that she could feed constantly and stay powerful without being caught.
Yeah.
And it's also hard to that's something. It's also hard to tell if the isthmus is the entire continent and she kind of conquered it, or if she's still constantly at war with them. And it's hard to tell. And that, I mean, do you have...
Well, that's why I said it wasn't the focus. Like, I think it was thrown in there to give him a quick idea of how she was able to survive so long and been able to feed, but I don't think the author wanted to make that the primary focus.
Okay. So how many Kisas are you giving it?
I gave it 4 Kisas. It was a quick read. It was cute, heartwarming. There were moments that kind of made me go, oh, and there was moments where I felt like, don't you dare hurt Blueberry, don't you dare hurt the Blob. Like, even for the epilogues, I thought it was cute when Secession went into hibernation. Secession was scared that, like, what's going to happen is the Blob going to eat Homily and Homily's not going to come back. But come to find out, they got, like, when she gets out of her hibernation, like, she walks into the room and the Blob is on her arm. And Secession thought that her baby or the baby was eating her, but they didn't. They were just playing a fun game. So, like, there was cute, silly moments that added levity. So I find it enjoyable. And even though it's not essentially what you say your what was the cozy reads, like it's not like your Legends and Lattes or the there's another one with about a tea. I have it somewhere. What is it called? What is it? Can't spell treason with T. Like, those are supposed to be like cozy fantasies. I feel like it's almost a cozy fantasy, but there is a graphic horror aspect. So I think it's like at the almost being cozy, but still keeping to a little bit of graphic fantasy horror. So if it's cute, if you want something that has a slight romance in it, representation in it, I feel like this book would be something quick and easy for you to read, especially during the fall spooky season. You may find this enjoyable.
I'm going to give it 3.5 Kisas. It was a fun, silly story. I think that the message overall is worth the price of the book. You can make people feel really warm and fuzzy, and it can help people kind of like understand what they're going through a little better and maybe help them identify people that they might want to stay close to or get to know. These kind of stories, I feel like it's harder to say that, like, it makes it, I guess it doesn't really make it it easier to identify people who are good and who are bad, because most people aren't surrounded by people that like comically evil or that abusive or toxic, especially when none of us are princes, princesses, kings, or queens. I think it's more to see yourself as those characters and feel better about ourselves, or realize that we're not alone, or realize that we can still find love or companionship or understanding or a place to fit in, even if it seems like that's not the case. But overall, yeah, I think it's a fun story. It's interesting, something a little out of the ordinary.
I'll take it.
And I think it's good for people. It's not, if you're a fan of horror, I wouldn't
say it's horror. I think there's light.
Yeah, but if you look at the cover, I would immediately think it's a horror. And there are some horror elements, and it is gory and it deals with it deals with monsters, as in like beasts that look scary to humans in appearance.
Yeah.
So, but I think that it's more for if you like a lighter, like psychological kind of horror style, like a silly adventure, where if you're sensitive to psychological abuse or things like that, then you might like it, because there are a lot of moments in the story where the characters are horrified because of what they think is going to happen to the people that they love. Mm-hmm. And I think some people that are very sensitive to those things emotionally, they might be able to see themselves in those characters. Mm-hmm. And that can be horrifying if they think about a situation that they're going through where they were put in a very similar spot. It could be effective as a horror. Mm-hmm. So yeah, 3.5. And
well, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for sticking around for this video. If you like it, please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what kind of fantasy horror books that you find yourself gravitating to, and maybe we'll give it a go in one of our videos. We post a video on the first Sunday of every month, so please keep a lookout. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.
Thanks. See ya.